This is a picture of my brain. I've spent years trying to make it do hard work. Sometimes it can do hard work. Sometimes the thought of doing 100 cold calls in the morning is the scariest thing on the planet. And that was my problem. I could never do hard work consistently. That was until recently. You see, I was listening to a podcast by Andrew Hubermans, and this is when the penny dropped.
It's about adding more work that you don't want to do.
Yes.
This brain area gets bigger.
Yep.
Now, here's what's especially interesting about this brain area to me.
We'll get back to Uncle Huberman and what he thought was especially interesting a little bit later. Hard work isn't necessarily lifting heavy weights. It's not necessarily doing a cold plunge. If you do those things consistently, it becomes easy. Hard work is doing things you don't want to do, like doing the dishes. You see, this brain, it's evolved for almost 7 million years. We actually descended from this thing here. And over those years of evolution, our brain has been hardwired to keep us in comfort. You see, when you sit down to do hard work, your brain will do everything in its power to stop you from doing it. It normally turns to these two things. Your inner voice. Immediately, once you sit down to do hard work, you rationalize in your head every reason under the sun why you shouldn't be doing that work. Suddenly, when you sit down to write that YouTube script, the dishes become an incredibly attractive thing to do. Other tasks and ideas will pop into your head. They may seem like a priority, but they're not. They're just easier to do. It's your brain tricking you to do an easier task than the actual hard work. The second thing your brain does is it relies on your ego. You probably have this concept in your head that you're better than most people at certain things. You may think that you're better looking than most people. You may think that you're smarter than most people. You may think that you're harder working than most people. But when it comes down to hard work, we're often presented with difficult truths that we don't like. For instance, maybe you don't have the self-control of a Navy SEAL that you thought you did. Maybe you don't actually have the mental resolve of a long-distance marathon runner. Maybe you don't actually have a shot with Sydney Sweeney. And because your ego gets hurt, you never want to do hard work again because you don't want to experience those emotions. Once you learn to master these emotions, doing difficult things becomes incredibly easy. There is a process that I've figured out, and it's making my life so much easier. I've broken it down into 3 simple steps. Step 3 is a remarkably good hack at making your ego work for you. When we sit down to do difficult things, our brain starts rationalizing why it's not a good idea to do a YouTube script or make 100 cold calls or make a pivot table. And more often than not, what I find my brain doing is looking at other YouTube videos that may be similar to the one that I'm trying to make, or I'll be looking at lead sourcing as opposed to actually making cold calls, or I'd just be straight up avoiding making a pivot table. Well, that's when I figured out this hack. Step 1, to eat the frog, eat the limb first. Well, that actually sounds weird. I should not that. Let's say start small. Your brain will find it incredibly hard to rationalize doing 5 cold calls versus doing the dishes, writing 1 sentence versus doing the dishes. If you just write 1 sentence, it's a lot easier to do that as opposed to doing the dishes. So step 1, start small. Even once you've started to do the hard work, your brain will still try and rationalize other things you can be doing when you should be in a deep focus mode. And things will drift into your head like, you need to do the dishes, or it's your friend's birthday, you need to wish them happy birthday. If you don't learn to control these thoughts, you'll constantly get distracted and pulled into multiple different directions. Step 2, manage your distractions. Let the thought come, jot it down on a piece of paper and put it aside. Doing this means you haven't actually forgotten this task because it may be an important task, but you also haven't got sidetracked from the task at hand. You stayed on that main task of doing pivot tables.
Remember Andrew Huberman earlier in the video? He's talking about the anterior mid-singular cortex, more commonly known as the part of our brain responsible for our will to live. It's when he goes on to describe it where the penny finally dropped for me.
All the data point to the fact that we can build this area up.
Yep.
But that as quickly as we build it up, if we don't continue to invest in things that are hard for us, that we don't want to do, that's the part that feels so Goggin-esque to me, that we don't want to do. Like if you love the ice bath, yeah, I love the ice bath, and you go from 1 minute to 10 minutes, guess what? Your anterior mid-cingulate cortex did not grow.
None.
But if you hate the cold water, if you're afraid of drowning and you get into water and put your head under, then your anterior mid and survive, then the anterior mid-cingulate cortex gets bigger. But if you don't do it the next day, or if you do it the next day and you enjoy it, because hey, I did it yesterday, woohoo, happy me, Merry Christmas, as you say.
Merry Christmas.
Guess what? The anterior mid-cingulate cortex shrinks again.
That's when I realized consistency was key. If you don't routinely do difficult things, you won't actually make any progress in life. And that's the catch. How do you consistently do hard work? Step 3, you need a process and routine. Step 1, lock your phone away. It's pretty simple. You just won't get distracted. Step 2, the Pomodoro technique. 25 minutes of deep work and 5 minutes of random thoughts and going to the toilet break. And you repeat this until you get the job done. Step 3, the 5-second rule. You do the hard thing after 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Step 4, you become the person that does hard things. When you do that, you trick your brain into doing hard things even when you don't want to.